we'll begin by taking a quick look at the Google Docs folder that has been set up. So as you can see, it's called Authoring Tools Demo. And very quickly, we'll go ahead and look at the share options on this folder. And as you can see, it's set up so that anyone who has the link can view. And this is very important. If this is not set up this way, if it's private, the authoring tool won't be able to read the content from this folder. So make sure that the share options are set up such that anyone who has the link can view. Otherwise, the authoring tool will output an error telling you to do so. So in this folder, you can see there are two subfolders, animations and images, and we'll be discussing those a bit later. But right now I'm going to open this document up called Authoring Tools Demo. And this is where we're actually going to be putting our XML content and where the authoring tool will be pulling that content from. So to give a quick example of that, I'm just going to write in here, this is some content. And then as soon as it saves, there we go, it's saved. I'll go ahead and I'll copy the link to this and paste it over here in the authoring tool, and then hit load from Google Doc. And as you can see, it's just taken the content that we wrote in the Google Doc and put it here in the XML box. So now obviously this won't be able to be parsed by the tool, it's not proper XML, but we'll go ahead and create some now. So I'll go over here and delete this. So what we're going to be doing is walking through the sample chapter, which you can find by clicking Load Sample. And we'll just walk through what each of these tags mean and a brief example of all of them. You can find the contents of the sample chapter as a Google Doc if you click here on XyTag Sample Chapter. It will open up the folder, and you can see there's animations and images, and here is the sample chapter itself. And so we'll start with the very first tag in this folder, which is a XyChapter tag. So I'm just going to take that and copy and paste it over here to this document I'm using. Every tag that's opened in XML has to be closed. So here I opened up the XyChapter tag and I have to close it with a /XyChapter. Each tag has a couple properties. It's going to have a name, for instance, XyChapter, and then it may have additional attributes, that some of which are optional, some of which are required. For instance, the XyChapter tag has this attribute called title, and it is in fact required. So if we don't have this attribute in our XyChapter tag, the authoring tool will output an error. So let's go ahead and load this up in the tool. And I'll get rid of that. And I'll hit load from Google Doc. And here we go. We can see that it's loaded from the Google Doc just like last time. And then down here I'm going to click Convert and Preview. And what this does is it actually takes the XML, it turns it into the HTML that will ultimately go into our chapter, and then if we scroll down further, we can see that it's actually produced a preview of the chapter. Now right now there's not much to see because it's just the chapter title, but it has produced it down here. I should also mention that there's another link up here at the upper right of the XML box called XyTag Dictionary. So if I click on that, I'll be taken to another Google Doc. And this contains a table of all the possible XyTags you can use, and on the right hand side we can see the different required and optional attributes for that tag. So this is a very handy reference to have open while you're creating a chapter. Alright, so I'll go back over to the sample chapter and take this next tag and copy that over to my document. And this next tag is a XySection. So a XySection represents a section of the chapter. So while each chapter can only have one XyChapter tag, a XyChapter can contain as many XySections as you'd like. Just like last time, since I opened the XySection, I now have to close it down here with a /XySection. XySections have three required attributes: title, which is the title of the section; short title, which is a title for the section that is preferably under 30 characters. This will be used in the sidebar on the left of the chapter, and it doesn't support quite as many characters over there. And then also an ID, and this ID has to be unique. That means no other XySection can have this same ID. This is enforced by the authoring tool, so if you try to use the same ID twice, it will output an error and inform you of that. So I'll go back to the authoring tool and I'll reload from the Google Doc. And as we can see, it loaded it just fine. I'll hit Convert and Preview. And down here it's gone ahead and created a section under the chapter for me. X.1 means this is chapter X. We don't actually know the chapter number, so it uses an X. And section 1. So chapter X, section 1, here's the title. Okay, we'll go ahead and do the next few here. I'll copy these into my document. So these use the P tag, which stands for paragraph tag, and this actually isn't a Xi tag, this is an HTML tag. So you can use whatever HTML you'd like in the XML, and it just passes straight through the tool. So it's output as the HTML you input it as. We can see another example of this. There are several examples of the A or anchor tag being used here to represent a link. And so I'll go ahead and load this into the tool by going back up to the top here, load from Google Doc, hit convert and preview, and if we scroll down here we can see that these are passed through just fine. We've got a couple paragraphs here, they contain links, we can click them, use them just like we would any other link in HTML. I'll go ahead and take the next set of paragraph tags from the sample chapter and copy that into my own document. And so as you can see, this is just showing more examples. If you'd like to italicize something, you can use the I tag, just like in HTML. We'd rather that you avoid things like bold or underline because we actually use those for our own tags. So while the italics tags are okay, if you want to bold or underline, there's probably a better tag to use. It also notes here that if, let's say in the Google document, if we decide to bold it here, that actually doesn't affect the output in the authoring tool. So I'll go ahead and in the authoring tools, reload from this Google Doc. And as you can see, even though I bolded this part of the text, it's not changed here. So any sort of formatting you do in the Google Doc is not preserved by the tool. So all the tool sees is plain text. So I'll go ahead and convert and preview once again. And we'll scroll down here and see that we get a couple more paragraphs. Also noted at the bottom of this paragraph, which is very helpful, HTML uses characters like the less than sign or left angle bracket to mean special things in its syntax. So if you'd like to denote a left angle bracket, for instance, you should use the HTML special character ampersand LT semicolon. So there are several of those. For greater than sign, it's ampersand GT. For an ampersand itself, you'd use ampersand AMP semicolon. So just be aware of those, that this is going to be output as HTML, so any special HTML characters must be escaped in that way. Alright, next we'll take a look at some of the special tags that are offered by our tool. So I'll copy and paste this next part over into our document. So in this part of the document we introduce a Xi term tag, a Xi good practice tag, actually that's over here, and a Xi common error tag. So a Xi term tag, actually I'll just go ahead and load this up in the document so we can see. So I'll load from Google Doc and convert and preview. So a Xi term tag will be bolded and italicized, and it will also show up in the table of contents as a term. So for instance, this term bit is a term that the users of the textbook should know. A Xi good practice tag surrounds a sentence that contains a good practice. Now the good practice tag should surround the words good practice because they will be automatically found and underlined. Common error is similar. Any common error tag should contain the words common error because they will also be underlined. And again, these special tags will show up in the table of contents as it says down here at the bottom. So back in the document we can see that Xi good practice and Xi common error tags do have a required attribute of ID. Right, so here we see the ID for the common error, here we see the ID for the good practice. So make sure you set up unique IDs. Once again, if the IDs aren't unique, the authoring tool will output an error. Xi terms don't require an ID because it actually just uses the term itself as the ID. So make sure that all your Xi terms are unique, or once again, you will see an error output by the tool. Okay, the next tag we'll look at is called a Xi table. So back here in the sample chapter, I'll copy this next part here all the way to the end of the Xi table. If I copy that in, go back over to the authoring tool, reload from the Google Doc, convert and preview, and scroll down. We can see here a table has been inserted for us and surrounded by this special kind of border with a title, a caption, and it's also got a number. So as we can see, this is table x.1.1. It's in chapter X in section 1, and this is table 1. So if we add any more tables, they will increment the numbering. So the next table in this section would be x.1.2 and the next .1.3. If we jump to a new section, then it will be x.2.1 and so on and so forth. So these are automatically numbered for you. To actually create the table, you have to use HTML table syntax. It's generally not complicated. We've posted a link to a short tutorial here if you need help with that. But as you can see, this is just normal HTML table syntax that we've inserted within our XyTable tags. XyTables have two required attributes: a caption, which is what appears at the top of the table right here, and then an ID. And once again, as with all IDs, this ID must be unique. Alright, so next we'll have a look at a couple of the tags that allow us to create different types of question sets. So we'll start with this XyQuestionTF, which stands for a true-false question set. And I'll go ahead and paste that into the document, and I'll just reload and we'll take a look at what this produces before we look at the actual syntax of the tag. So load from Google Doc, convert and preview, and I'll scroll down to the bottom. So here we go. This is a XyQuestion true-false that has been created for us. Just like the table, it's surrounded by this special border. It has a caption and it has a number. So once again, this will be automatically numbered. The next question set in this section will be x.1.2. So a true-false question consists of a couple things. One is the actual question, and then the other is the explanation. So when we get it, right or wrong, the explanation is presented, and if we get it correct, then we see this little green check. If we get it wrong, we see this little red X. And so each true-false question requires the question itself and an explanation. So we'll go ahead and look at that, how that's set up in the document. So right here we see a required attribute of the XyQuestionTF is the caption that we saw, right? The caption that we saw right here, and that's caption. And then also, just like most Xy tags, it requires a unique ID. We also had some special instructions here. It just says optional special instructions, but those go immediately beneath the XyQuestionTF if you have any sort of instructions you'd like to provide the users of the question. Then we have another tag, a new tag here, XyQ, which stands for XyQuestion. So each individual question that we see here, so in this case there are two, has to be surrounded in a set of XyQ tags. Here's the first question, and here's the second question. In a XyQuestionTF, underneath a XyQ tag, or between an opening and closing XyQ tag, there should be a XyQ text tag and a XyQ EXPL for XyQ explanation tag. The XyQ text is the text of the question, in this case the Earth is flat, and the XyQ explanation is the explanation that will be shown when the user gets it correct or incorrect. Also for the XyQ texts, you have to somehow specify which answer is correct, and you do that with the required correct attribute. In this case, the Earth is flat is false. So we've put false here as the correct answer. Again, here's just another example of a question. In here we've got a XyQ text and a XyQ explanation. In this case, the correct answer is true. Next, we'll have a look at another kind of Xy question, a XyQuestion short answer. So I'll copy that over from the sample into our document here. And I'll go back to the authoring tools and I'll load and hit convert and preview, and then scroll down to the bottom. So as you can see, this is another question set, just like the question set true-false, and so this was automatically numbered for us as x.1.2. Just like the true-false, it's got a caption, it's got some optional special instructions, and it's got several questions. Each question, however, is a bit more complicated. There are a few more attributes that we need to specify for each question in a short answer. So each short answer question consists of a question. It consists of an answer. Now in a true-false, that answer is just true or false. In a short answer, it can be any sentence you'd like to specify. Now let me go ahead and type in a wrong answer here. So 2 plus 2 is not 5. So if I check this, I get it wrong. And when I get it wrong, I'm presented with a hint. When I get it right, I'm given the explanation. So there are two more things that we need to add for each question, a hint and an explanation. Hints are given when you're wrong, explanations are given when you're correct. Explanations are given also if you hit show. If you give up, you can just hit show, hit OK, and the explanation is given. It's still counted as wrong, however. So if we take a look at the tag, very similar. It's got a caption, it's got an ID, it's got special instructions. But in each XIQ tag, between each XIQ set of tags, we have XIQ text and XIQ explanation, just like last time. XIQ hint is an additional tag that's fairly straightforward, similar to XIQ explanation. You just type the hint in between the two XIQ hint tags. XIQ answer is where we're going to specify the answer, but it has a couple additional attributes that you may want to specify. Strip space, if this is true, we'll take all the extraneous white space and strip it away. If obey case is true, then the answer will be case sensitive, otherwise it is case insensitive. So Xi question short answer, very similar to Xi question true false, except there are two more tags you need to specify in each Xi question. If you're missing these, the authoring tool will output an error, so make sure you have them. Okay, we'll have a look at the next type of question, which is a multiple choice question. So I'll go ahead and copy these into my document. Oops, let's go outside here. Okay, and let's go ahead and reload from the Google Doc and convert and preview. So multiple choice is actually very similar to true-false, except instead of just two options, true and false, there are multiple options, right? So we can see that just like in true-false, there are no hints, there are only explanations, and only one of these choices can actually be correct. Again, we've got this nice border, so question set x.1.3, it's been automatically incremented. There's a caption, there's optional instructions, and you can have as many questions as you'd like. So if we take a look at the actual tags, we'll see caption, ID, instructions. Now in each Xi question, there's a XIQ text tag, just like normal, and then there's a XIQ choice, and each XIQ choice tag, or each set of them, represents one of the multiple choices, right? So in this example question, there were three. Here's our first choice, second choice, third choice. Each XIQ choice contains a XIQ answer and XIQ explanation tag, and then we denote the correct answer by adding this attribute correct equals true to one of the multiple choice questions, one of the XIQ choice tags. So option C was correct, so we put correct equals true here. You can put correct equals false into these other ones, but it's actually not required. If nothing is there, it will assume false. There is one more type of question supported by the tool called a Xi question match. And this is a definition matching question. So you have multiple definitions and then multiple terms, and the user is required to match terms with definitions. So I've pasted that into my tool, or into my document. I'll reload from the document, convert and preview, and scroll back down to the bottom. And so as you can see here, we have this JavaScript tool where you can drag terms into the proper spot to line up with definitions. Now, if you try to do that, you'll actually get this message that it doesn't work. So in the preview, the definition matching tool doesn't function, but it does work perfectly fine in the actual chapter itself. So we'll take a look here. Again, similar, we have a caption, we have an ID, but now instead of a XIQ, or a XIQ, a Xi question, we have sets of XIQ match left and XIQ match right. And so a XIQ match left is the left side of this, a term, and the XIQ match right represents the definitions. And then these are randomly arranged and they're associated with each other, so if you have a XIQ match right after a XIQ match left, this definition corresponds to this term. And of course you can have as many of these in here as you would like. So we'll move on to, we're going to skip a few things here and move on to another special tag offered by the tool, and that is a Xi figure. And so this is actually a very common tag, probably be using this quite a lot. And so I'll go ahead and reload from the Google Doc and convert and preview. Scroll down to the bottom. So as you can see, a figure is just given a nice border. You can actually put anything you'd like within a figure. Here we've chosen a couple other special tags, which I'll discuss in just a moment. But just like anything else with the border, this is automatically numbered, so each figure will be given a number according to the chapter and section it's in, and how many have come before it. Figures can have captions associated with them, and just like anything else, they also have IDs. So if we take a look at the code here, we can see that it has a caption attribute, it has an ID attribute. The first thing in here, we can see we've presented some code to the user, and so this is very common, and that's embedded in a Xi code tag. So in here we have our C++ code, There are a few special things about a Xi code tag. First of all, normally things like this would not be accepted by an XML document. We're using this less than sign and this greater than sign, and XML doesn't play well with those. But because they're embedded in a Xi code tag, they're actually allowed. So anything in a Xi code tag, you don't have to do any escaping. You don't have to use ampersand LT semicolon for the less than sign, for instance. Also, in a future version of the tool, the code in a Xi code tag will be automatically colorized using a syntax highlighting tool. And so in order to do that properly, you must specify the language that the code is. So in this case, we've said language equals CPP for C++. And so all of the code inside the Xi code tag will be automatically colorized according to the syntax of C++. You can see also in this figure we have the output of this program in a console. And so we have a special Xi console tag for that, and we use that for exactly what I just said, to display the output of code. So we very often put Xi code and Xi console tags together within a Xi figure. That's a very, very frequent paradigm when using the authoring tool. Next we'll cover how we'd go about embedding images within the chapter. So over here I'm going to copy this next Xi figure tag over into our document. So the Xi figure tag, just like the last Xi figure tag, has a caption and an ID. And then within the Xi figure we have this other tag, Xi image. And a Xi image simply represents an image. It has several required attributes. File is the name of the image file itself. In this case we're using sampleimage.png. It has an ID. You need to specify a height and a width, as well as a title. The title is the alternate text for the image, so when you hover over the image, this is the text that would appear as a tooltip. Also, screen readers, as they read over this chapter, they read off this text in place of the image. Lightbox is a special property. If set to true, when the user clicks on the image will show up in a special viewing window. Again, this doesn't actually work in the preview in the authoring tool, but it works just fine in the chapter itself. So let's go ahead and reload from the Google Doc and convert and preview. If I scroll down to the bottom, I can see everything worked fine except the image isn't showing up, right? We've got a Xi figure here, the image is the right width and height, but the image isn't actually showing up. And the reason for this is the authoring tool doesn't actually know where to look for this image, right? We've said we want sampleimage.png, but it has no idea where to find that. So if we go back over here to the Google Docs folder where our document is being stored, I'm going to go into the images subfolder, and in here, here's the image we want, sampleimage.png. So we need to tell the authoring tool to look here for it. So what we need is the title of the folder, authoring tools demo, where all these things are being stored. So authoring tools demo, I'm going to take that, and in the authoring tool, in this chapter folder title field, I'm going to type in authoring tools demo. And now when I hit convert and preview, the authoring tool will go and look for that folder, it will find the images subfolder, and it will download the image we need from there. It will download sampleimage.png. So as you can see, it actually took quite a bit longer, and that's because it's doing that whole process in the background. It needs to find the folder and download the image. But now, if I scroll down to the bottom, the image has loaded just fine, right? We can see the image there. So whenever you want to use images or animations, which we'll discuss shortly, make sure that you have this chapter folder title specified with the name of the folder you're working with. For now, I'm actually going to delete this field because if we don't fill that in, it doesn't go and look for it, it doesn't download the image, and so it's a lot faster to convert. So even though we won't see the image, the conversion process will be much faster. Next, we'll go over how to embed an animation into our chapter, and so go ahead and copy the next tag. The tag in question here is a Xi height animation tag, and it's got several required attributes just like a Xi image. So it's got a caption, an ID, a file name, a width, and a height. The file name is simply the name of the animation, and if we go over here into the Google Docs folder, I'm here in the animation subfolder, we can see that the animation is here, so the authoring tool will be able to find it. So again, if I want it to find and download the animation, I'm going to have to specify the name of the chapter. And so I'll go ahead and load from Google Doc and do a convert and preview. And again, because it needs to go find that folder and then download the content, download the image, and download the animation, it's going to take a bit longer once we hit convert and preview because we've specified this chapter folder title. But as soon as it's done, we can go ahead and scroll down to the bottom, and here we go. We see our embedded hype animation. We can use it just like we normally would. So I'll go ahead and play this one. There we go. So embedding hype animations and embedding images are both very similar. Make sure if you want either one to actually show up in the preview, you need to specify the chapter folder title right here. But again, I'm going to delete it for the remainder of the demo. That way the convert and preview works a bit faster. I don't want it re-downloading everything every time we run it. Okay, the next tag in the sample chapter is called a Xi footnote. And so this is used to create footnotes in the chapter. And to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to go up to the top of our document here and put it, let's put it right between these two paragraphs here. And so you can see I've inserted Xi footnotes, I've given it an ID, and then I've given it some text between the Xi footnote tag. So if I go back to the authoring tools and load from the Google Doc, and then convert and preview, if we scroll down just a bit, we can see the footnote is right here. I inserted it between these two paragraphs. So now, what's cool about a Xi footnote is if I click on this, it jumps to the bottom of the section right here, and we can actually see the footnote text. So what we put in between the Xi footnote tags is what goes right here. The ID shows up in a, oops, if I scroll down a bit, in a superscript, and when you click it, it jumps to the text of the Xi footnote. Next, we'll introduce a couple new tags, Xi construct and Xi try. I'll just go ahead and paste those into our document and reload from the Google Doc and convert and preview. If we scroll down to the bottom here, this is a Xi construct. It creates this gray box here, and this is where you'd want to define new language constructs, for instance. And then a Xi try creates, just like animation, a figure, a table, a nice bordered box here, automatically numbered with a caption. And here is where you might want to give the user an activity that they might want to try. For instance, a coding exercise. Maybe you just introduced a new construct and you say, okay, now go try to use that construct. So a Xi try can be used to specify a task that a user should go and try to complete. These are very simple tags. Xi construct has no required or optional attributes. And a Xi try simply has an ID and a caption. Right? And then you can put text in here, you can put anything you'd like. Here we've chosen to put in pre-tags, which preserves formatting, but that's not necessary for a Xi construct. You can choose to leave those out. Finally, we'll introduce the last tag that the tool supports, and that is the Xi enum tag. Actually, I'll take from up here. So we've seen that with things like the Xi try, the Xi hype animation, the Xi figure, we get these nice bordered boxes that are automatically numbered. But it may be the case that you'd like to create your own types of things rather than, instead of a figure or an animation or a table, that also have these boxes and that are also automatically numbered. And so a Xi enum or Xi enumerated type tag allows you to do that. So as we can see here, we've created several. Here's our Xi try from the last example. But here we've created an enumerated type theorem, and we've added two theorems here. As you can see, they're automatically numbered. This is theorem x.1.1. This is theorem x.1.2. And here we've created another enumerated type, postulate. Right? You can create anything you'd like. You can make axioms or any other type of enumerated type you'd like, and it will be given a bordered box and will be automatically numbered. So let's take a quick look at the tag itself. Xi enums are very simple. They come with a type attribute that is required. So in this case we have a theorem, here we have a postulate. They have a caption and they have an ID, and then that's it. Inside you can put whatever text you'd like. You can add other things like Xi code, Xi console. But Xi enum types are very useful for creating these nice bordered, automatically numbered boxes with your own custom types. It will likely be the case, as you're authoring a chapter, that you make some form of error. Maybe you forget an attribute in a tag, or you have mismatched tags. You forget an opening or closing tag. So we have a couple things available to help you with that. For instance, here I have a paragraph surrounded in P or paragraph tags. Let's say I accidentally forget that opening paragraph tag, so I'll delete that. This is no longer valid XML, so when I hit convert and preview, the tool is unable to parse it, and it says so. It says XML parsing error, mismatch tag, line 10, column 94. When this kind of error happens, this jump to error button down here becomes clickable. When we click it, it moved my cursor to where it found the error. So in this case, the error occurred at the closing paragraph tag because it didn't find an opening one before this. So whenever you see an error like this, click Jump to Error, and it should make it a lot easier to identify where you've gone wrong, and it should aid the debugging process. This concludes the brief introduction to the Xiante authoring tools. In this video, we didn't cover every Xi tag possible, nor every attribute possible for these tags for the purposes of brevity. So if you should have questions about that, or if you want to find out the other options, take a look at the Xi tag dictionary, which you can find a link to in the upper right corner of the authoring tool. And should you have any questions, bug reports, as it says right here, feel free to send an email to support@xiante.com. Thank you.